back to the Green Lectionary Podcast, a conversation on Scripture through the lens of creation justice. My name is Derek Weston, and today we will be looking at a text for Trinity Sunday, May 31st. For the summer, we will be focusing on texts for Ordinary Time, the Sundays that fall in between the better-known liturgical seasons. My guest today is the Very Reverend Pamela Dolan. Pamela is the rector of the Episcopal Church of St. Martin in Davis, California, and the author of Contemplative Gardening. Before we begin, I am proud to announce that this year the Green Lectionary Podcast will be a part of the God Pods at Theology Beer Camp. Theology Beer Camp is a unique 3-day experience for theology nerds and church outcasts. I had the pleasure of attending last year and got to hear a slate of amazing speakers and have excellent conversations about the current state and the future of the church, all while enjoying some excellent beers. Theology Beer Camp will be taking place at Pine Ridge Presbyterian Church in Kansas City, Missouri from October 8th to 10th. Hope to see you there. You can learn more at theologybeer.camp. Join us now as we look at Psalm 8 through the lens of creation justice. Pamela, it's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So last time you were here, we didn't actually get a chance to talk about your book, which is one of my favorite books. It was one of the books that, like, the moment it came across my radar, I was like, I need to buy that immediately. And it's called Contemplative Gardening.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, tell us where the idea for this book came from for you.
Sure. I was, at the time that I wrote it, well, not when I wrote it, when the idea came to me, I was a priest at a small church outside of St. Louis, and we decided to have a garden. And that isn't that revolutionary in some ways. Lots of churches have gardens. But for us, it was a big step. It was a church that was coming back, sort of in a rebuilding phase, and had way more land than we had people to do anything with it. And so we had this just amazing experience of growing food together and tending to the land and then giving the food away. And I realized over time that it was changing my life. I was not a gardener, so it was not my idea. My idea had been to raise goats. And for some reason, the vestry just didn't get behind that. So I said, oh, sure. Okay, we'll grow some food, second best. And instead, I just loved it. I learned so much from my parishioners, from the people who already were good gardeners, who knew what they were doing. And, being sort of like almost next door to Monsanto and thinking about food and soil health and food deserts and all of those things was just really eye-opening for me. So I'd say my whole next journey into creation care and learning about climate change, all of that came out of working in the garden. So I used the garden as the basis for my project for a doctorate in ministry I was doing at Sewanee, and wrote about gardening as a spiritual practice, and was encouraged when people said, this would make a pretty good book. So it took a while. I mean, I moved in between and came out here to California, where I'm from, and had to, think about how to take it out of a more academic setting into something that I hoped would reach a broader audience. But it was a great opportunity to really think about those changes in my own life. How had gardening changed me? Because I had been such a reluctant gardener, I sort of felt like if it could work for me, it might. So yeah, that's the genesis of it.
Yeah, I love that. There's two things that are top of mind as I'm thinking about your book. One, I have very vivid memories of reading it because I got your book right around the very first time I got COVID.
Oh.
And so I was like sequestered. I was like quarantined off from my family and in a hotel room and reading your book. And that memory is kind of burned into my brain. But it was like actually the perfect book. It was the perfect time and the perfect time to read it, because it was helping me think about spiritual practices, and it was helping me think about my prayer life, and it was helping me think about all of these things that like I didn't actually have. I needed to do some internal work,
Yeah. Oh.
but I resonated so deeply with the book because you know I tell the story a lot. I kind of went through a dark night of the soul period,
Mhm.
and one of the main ways that I got out of that dark night of the soul was by having my hands in the soil. And it was so great to like have some resonances of
Mhm.
that come through in your book. And I'm just so grateful for it.
That's such a touching story. I felt a little bad to be connected with COVID line. It's like that's a great association. But no, I think, reading had always been a source of solace in my life. I sort of grew up thinking it was like reading and church were the
Mhm.
two things that really saved me.
Mm,
And then I had this midlife epiphany where working the land became the other thing. And now I just can't imagine my life without it.
mm,
And it connects you to really cool people. I mean, I met you through knowing Brian Sellis Peterson, he was the godfather of my book because it was
mm.
him while I was still in St. Louis, and he learned what I was doing with this garden. And he said, well, that's what your D-men should be about. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So he was the one that planted that seed. And I always say, I think gardeners are some of the most generous people.
Mm,
There's, I don't know. I feel like every gardener wants to share their secrets instead
mm.
of keeping them. Maybe not every gardener, but most of the ones. And, give away plant starts. And I mean, there's just this kind of, because in some ways it's a solitary thing for most of us. We do it on our own, but it still feels like there's a community of gardeners, a
Yeah.
community of people who care.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really well said. I think it's one of those things where, yeah, while we do it alone, we kind of then like immediately want to run out and tell everyone about what we did in our garden.
Yeah.
Like that is that is a quirk that we all seem to have.
Well, I remember taking pictures, doing seed starts inside for the first time because I grew up in Hawaii, so I grew up in warm weather,
Mm,
and being in St. Louis and realizing that you wanted to plan ahead for your garden.
mm,
And so I'm doing seed starts for the first time, and I've got everything set up, with little tiny pots and everything on a tray and have a light. And I took these pictures. I want to say it was chard and little tiny sprouts coming up. And I thought, this is like being infatuated or being in
mhm,
love.
mhm.
It's like, oh, doesn't everybody want to see my little baby as excited as I am? And some people are, luckily. There are people
Yes. Yes. And you always feel a little less crazy
who
when you get the good response from that.
you found one of your people if they're excited for you.
Yes, yes. What do you feel like, I mean, maybe let me start this question over again. What do you feel like gardening has what's the most helpful thing in terms of thinking about your own spiritual life? What have been some of the most like salient insights that you've gotten from your garden in terms of your spiritual life?
So many things. First thing that comes to mind is paying attention, really being present to what's happening in a garden. You can sort of catch problems a little earlier sometimes, but really that's what that's so much of what the garden has to offer, I think, is a place to simply be. You've got work to do, but a lot of it is not work that is mentally taxing. So it kind of just lets you live into it and be present. And from that, then I find a sense of gratitude gardening that I don't always cultivate as well in my day-to-day life. And and in a funny way, I think it has helped my spiritual life to be more grounded in reality.
Hmm,
Maybe because I was sort of a bookish person. It's one thing to sort of read about spiritual practices and another thing to do them. And gardening just doesn't let you get away from reality, from what's working well, what's not working well, the seasons, where you live. It's very localized, and it so you have to actually get to know where you are.
Mm.
And I have developed a sense of place that now just I feel like it just I can't imagine having a sort of detached, abstract spiritual life. Or maybe at one time I sort of thought you could do that.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't even make sense to me anymore to think that way. It's like I'm here.
Mm.
You think about the Genesis stories, and especially when it's like God placed people in a garden. There's something about being placed
Mm.
that I feel like we don't take seriously enough, and it changes how I relate to my church and my home and my food and all kinds of things.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
I really love that emphasis of place. So I'm at the time of this recording, I'm getting ready to move, and
Yeah.
I've been having this grief around my
Mhm.
garden, of like
Yeah.
this place that I've been cultivating
Mhm.
for 11 years, and like while I'm excited about the move and the new opportunities, like I am looking at this place that like I have had my
Mhm.
hands in this particular dirt for over a decade, and
Yeah.
it's like wow, that's like I'm there's a little bit of grief, but there's
Mhm. Yeah.
so much gratitude for
Yeah.
like really feeling like I poured myself into this soil,
Yes.
and to, like,
Yeah.
put my hand into it and feel how rich and, like, loamy it is and, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did that. I was a part of
You
this.
did. You
Um,
did. And that co-creation,
yeah.
I I think it also helps because for someone like me, besides being kind of cerebral, I also thought that nature meant, I grew up along the Pacific Ocean. It meant like these grand, glorious wilderness
Mm,
experiences where, if I'm honest, a lot of times I feel like I'm just sort of a visitor, like I'm just likely to be there and look around. And gardening is a totally different experience with
mhm,
creation where it reminds us that we're a part of it
mhm,
and we have a job to do. I'd also just offer, when you think about moving, I mean, you're probably considering this, but some kind of ritual around saying
mhm,
goodbye to your garden. John O'Donohue says somewhere that he's it's in one of his books where he's talking about the funeral processions that happen in Ireland and people getting sort of this last chance to say goodbye to the land. And he says, but you should consider that the land will miss you too, just
mm,
like you'll miss it. And that's always really, really touched me to think that, whatever we think about the land having consciousness is too big of a word, but something,
mm.
that you've changed it and to honor that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Mm.
One last question about the book, because you kinda mentioned this, that sort of gardening was sort of the gateway for you, the on-ramp, if you will,
Mhm.
thinking about larger issues of creation and climate and all those sorts of things. Like,
Mhm.
how has it made you think? How has it affected your thinking about the larger issues of climate change? And when you think of like, as you said, it's very localized,
Mhm.
but there's sort of this bigger crisis that we're kind of all find ourselves in the middle of.
Yeah.
How's it approached the way that you, or how has it affected the way that you approach that sort of overwhelmingly large topic?
Yeah. Well, when I was considering a move, I was so encouraged to find a church that was already well on the way to becoming carbon neutral, that had really sort of made creation care and especially issues around climate change a priority. That was just something that really wasn't on my radar that much until I started working with the land and hearing from farmers around me there in Missouri about how planting times had changed, what they could grow was shifting, learning about soil health and how much we have just devastated that, learning about food systems, all of those bigger thing. There's the joy and the richness of just like you've been saying, like getting your hands in the dirt and growing food, especially if you get a chance to give it away. I mean, there's just nothing better than that. And we can't sort of, silo that off and act like it's not a part of this larger concern that we're all facing. So, thinking about chemicals and weather and, you just start seeing how it's all connected, I think, or that's been my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one summer having just a particularly wet summer.
Mhm.
It's like thinking about, wow, what if this became the norm?
Mhm.
If this became even more frequent,
Mm.
how much that would change the way that, I mean, just my my garden bed was flooded on a couple different occasions, and I was like, wow, this is not something I had even. It was several years into gardening, and it wasn't something I had experienced before. And I was like, oh,
Yep.
these are the kinds of things that we are going to have more frequently. And
Yeah.
how do we respond? How do we adapt? How do we mitigate? How do we change?
How do we change? Yeah. Yeah. And then when you even start looking beyond, I mean, what I like to grow is something that I can eat.
Yeah, same.
But landscape gardening, I mean, what do
Right.
you grow to try to have positive impact? And, here in Northern California, there's lots of emphasis on native landscaping and climate, drought tolerant landscaping, things like that, because water is such a huge issue here, as is heat. And it's making us rethink things like what a native plant is, even because even though we know what the natives are for our local region, they are not always as well adapted to how things are changing as something that maybe comes from farther south or what have you.
Right.
So it
Right.
it it sort of even questions our categories around, what's supposed to be here, and is there any way we can get away from the human impact, like that we need to be making a positive impact to try to push back against all the negative impact we've made. You can't just say, "Oh, just let it do its thing," because
Yeah.
that's probably
Yeah.
not gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
eye opening in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah,
of
it is.
Well, this is not a gardening podcast.
Okay.
As much
We'll
as
get
I
that
want it to be, it's not a gardening. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. So we are going to. We were joking before we started recording. We are going to read Psalm 8, which is a little bit of a layup for this podcast, but we're gonna see where we take it. Mm, So I'll go ahead and read it for us. This is Psalm 8. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are humans that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. So, where is creation in this passage?
I remember the first time I was on your podcast, and I said, "I think it's everywhere." And you that answer a lot, but no, really, really, really is everywhere in Psalm 8. And I've been thinking about this psalm, and I've been noticing how easy it is to sort of look at it as almost the great chain of being, or sort of a hierarchical view of nature, because of creation, because it has the heavens and the people and where we fit in between, angels and all of that. And then this, it kind of read like you're going down the line
Mm,
into like sheep and oxen and all these other things that are out there with us somewhere near the top. But I would hope we can complicate that a little bit. I hope that's a reading, but I don't think it's the only way to read this. I really, when I'm thinking about creation with this psalm, one of the, you just have to start with those bookends, that, "O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth." So just from that opening line that's repeated, all the earth, that sense of it's everything that is created. And that I almost want to ask, well, like, where else would the Lord's name be glorified? Like, it's sort of like, what is that even, is that a real question? Is that a political question? Oh, but it's like, I think it's saying these things that in some ways seem so obvious and so easy to take for granted. But if you just step back and think of it, almost start at a somewhat literal reading as your starting point, it's like, oh yeah, all the earth is under the sovereignty of God. And and so then what? Then what does that say about what creation is, what it means? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's because actually your question is a great one. The staff of CJM, we've been talking. I feel like every staff meeting we've had in the last couple of months there's been some mention of the Artemis too,
Oh, yeah.
and like how different does this read from the perspective of people who are outside of the planet,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like people who could actually
Yeah.
see all of the earth, and like that the earth is kind of like radiating the
Mm,
glory of God to
mhm.
those folks who are seeing it from space, right?
Right.
I think there is something where we actually do have this kind of privileged place where we are getting those images and saying, no, like seriously, the whole earth is telling of the majesty of God.
Oh, that's beautiful because, presumably the people who were writing the Psalms didn't have those same images, and they maybe couldn't even imagine when they said all the
Yeah.
earth, the way for us that conjures up these images from space. We realize, the roundness and the beauty and to a certain extent the fragility that you feel when you look at those images. And, we're living in this time when some people are talking about going to Mars and other things are happening, even to think in pop culture, where the Project Hail Mary, if
Mm.
you saw that movie. I mean, so what I actually have a friend who's an astrobiologist who talks about, well, what if there's a little green alien Jesus out there, which was not where I was planning to go with today. But all the earth, we're maybe just to remember that privilege of the generation that we live in, that we have a much better sense of what all the earth really means than at any time before in history. And there's so much we still don't know. There's still
Yeah.
mystery. Yeah.
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 And,
Yeah.
and so much we still don't get, and as we think about, yeah, this psalm in some ways really is an echo of the first creation story of
Mm,
Genesis.
mm,
And like there's still things that feel, I don't know, kind of mysterious. And I kind of want to transition a little quicker than I normally do
mm,
into the second question, because there's a really live question in this psalm about how do humans interact with the non-human world.
mhm.
And I'm kind of interested, like as you think about the ways that this psalm talks about the role of humans,
Yeah.
like where
Yeah.
do you see the way that we do interact with the non-human world and the
Mhm.
way that we should interact with the non-human world? How do you feel that? How do you see that kind of reflected in this psalm?
It's really interesting because my first, couple of readings of it, I kept going straight for that word dominion, which
Hmm.
I'm sure we'll talk about. I think it's important though to remember that one of the first images after that opening couple of lines is, you have set your glory above the heavens. And then it says, out of the mouths of babes and infants.
Mm.
For whatever reason, the psalmist is starting here with the most vulnerable of our human beings, So I think that maybe balances out a little bit that
Mm.
perhaps that sense of humanity's dominance that comes in later. But it feels like the psalm is working that out, is working
Mm.
out what exactly is our role, our human role in this. So on the one hand, we've been made just a little lower than God, crowned with glory and honor. I mean, again, that creation, made in the image of God, is that all of that language is clearly in there, which, really we could stop and just talk about that for 45 minutes. Yeah, it's one of those things I feel like we hear so often. We're made in the image of God and we reflect God's glory, that you can almost just kind of like check it off. But really, what does that mean? And especially, what does that mean then in terms of how we relate to the non-human or more than human world? And even in terms of it's why I think it's kind of like this balancing act, or kind of this working it out within the psalm. First, you start with the babes and the infants, who somehow are a form of protection against the enemy. So that's very interesting. Really, that's a tough one. And then this question in the next couple of verses about what are humans that you are mindful of them, juxtaposing people up against, the heavens and that awesome place of like looking up at the sky and seeing it full of stars and the moon. That too is kind of a corrective to, getting too big for our britches. Feels like it sort of weaves these different perspectives on humankind through. They just keep sort of popping up and then going down. And so like, we're so tiny compared to the heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established. I mean, it would be so easy to take the psalmist saying, so we're just like nothing. And yet we're made in God's image. God is mindful of us. There's something very caring, tender about, like God's keeping an eye on us. How could that be? All of that before we even get to the dominion and what does that mean? I don't know if you want to jump into that part next, because there's.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I definitely want to go into that, but I think you're absolutely right. This is not a. First off, it's not leading off with the dominion piece, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
leading off with this. It's humility. I feel like
Yes.
of it's amazing the world that you've made, God, and in the midst of all of the things that you've made, the beautiful, incredible things that you've made, you're still thinking about us. Like, wow. Wow. Like that, I mean, it fills you with awe, it fills you with gratitude, it fills
Yes.
you with humility. And it'd be like, wow,
Yeah.
we are just a part of this bigger
Mhm.
picture,
Mhm.
and God still notices us. That's cool.
No, I've got goosebumps because I think that's exactly. I mean, humility is the perfect word to capture it, and it's a kind of humility that maybe is not common in our culture. It's not humiliation. It's not. It's
Mm.
it's it's like it's like really knowing our place. To
Mhm,
go back
mhm,
to, in a funny
mhm,
way, what we were talking about earlier, our place within the created order. That if the tiniest, I don't know, mycorrhizal fungal network is important to God too,
mm,
and we're so important to God. We don't have to worry about whether we're more important than that is, is an earthworm more important than a person? I don't know.
mm.
think it matters. I think it's from God can sort all that out. I'm just so happy to be a piece of that wherever God's put me. That's part of what I hear in this psalm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's it. I think it's the psalmist saying, how cool that I get to be a part of this.
How cool is that?
How cool is this?
I don't know the Hebrew for how cool is.
I don't either. I don't either. I'm not sure we covered that, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's there.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about the dominion piece, because it feels a little bit like a shift,
Mhm.
but is it? Is it a shift?
Yeah, that's probably the right question. I went back and looked a little bit at my old thumbed through Ellen Davis book on scripture culture and
Shout out to
agriculture.
Ellen Davis.
Oh, love that. And because she talks a lot about that we've just sort of misunderstood what dominion means.
Mm.
And I remember hearing a lecture from her, and I'm sure she's said it a million times, dominion is not domination. And I think in various places she talks about trying to find some better words for it that are even closer to the Hebrew. And she talks about things like mastery with, like skillfulness, kind
Mm.
of, as opposed to dominion over, like
Mm.
that over idea really isn't in the original language. I have to take her word for that. But so is it, and I think somewhere I read that there's even more of a sense in the way this word is used, that it's more like a shepherd among his flock.
Mm.
It's more of that kind of, so yes, caring and tending, and still, yeah, okay, you're in charge to, I mean,
Mhm.
but because she needs someone to be in charge,
Mhm.
not because it gives you some sort of, power rush. It's in order for the flourishing and the thriving to happen.
Mm.
Um, and since there's such a parallel between these verses about, from, you have given them dominion over the works of your hands, put all things under your feet, and then the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, that's so parallel to what we hear in Genesis, that I can't imagine there's any way that that's not intentional.
Mhm.
But when you put it in this context of having really thought about the, wow, how cool is that we even get to be part of this, I think that it hits different then. I
Mhm.
think you hear it differently. So if we're made in the image of God and we reflect God's glory, God made all this other stuff. And in some way, God puts us in charge, although I'm going to use that language very advisedly. We must need to be in charge, so to speak, in the same way that God, like our leadership should somehow be like God's leadership.
Yeah.
So God is very relational, very tender in this psalm. So what are the attributes of God's leadership and shepherding and caring that we're supposed to mimic? That's
Mm.
that's what I
Mhm.
was thinking about with this word here.
Yeah.
Um, God,
Yeah.
God has entrusted. He's entrusted all of this to us in some way. So then what? Then
Mm.
then what does it look like to have this dominion or care for, or whatever word you want to use?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that shift that happens from verse 4 to verse 6. What are humans that
Yeah.
you're mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yeah, you made them a little lower than God and crowned with glory and honor.
Mhm.
You've given them dominion over the works of your hands. Like, what are we that you're mindful of us? Yet you've given us this privilege, exactly what you just said. So now, instead of feeling like I don't get domination from that. I get responsibility.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get, whoa. First off, you're noticing that we're here at all. and,
Right.
you've given us a role. Like,
Yeah.
because again, the role that we have is one that God assigned. That
Right.
you that whatever dominion we have, whatever it is,
Hmm.
it came from God.
Right.
We only
Right.
have it because of
Right.
God. We
Right.
only have it because of God. Like, and so what I hear in all of that is responsibility.
Yeah.
That, like, you've given us responsibility of the sheep and the oxen and the beasts of the field and the birds of the air and the fish of the sea.
Yeah.
And, like, that is
What?
not domination at all.
No.
That
In
is
fact, you're making me think of, you know, I mean, my kids are grown-ups now, but when I became a mom and my mom was there helping me, the first couple weeks or something, and then she flew back home, and all of a sudden that sense of like, "Wait, wait. I'm supposed to do this? Like, what? Are you crazy?" You know? "Oh, there's gotta be a grown-up around here." Thrilled, I mean, that's what this is giving me the way you're talking.
Yes.
It's like, "Oh,
Yes.
you sure?
Yeah.
You really think this is a good idea for us to be in charge?" Like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Every new parent has that feeling that
Like,
wait a minute, there should be an adultier adult around.
"Wait, I'm the adult in the
Like,
room."
how am I the adult in the room?
Yeah,
But that's exactly what this feels. That's exactly what this feels like. This, like,
yeah.
oh, that, like, you then approach it with a little bit of, again, humility and maybe a little bit of fear
A little bit.
of, like,
Yeah,
not screwing this thing up,
yeah.
which
With
is the feeling I had bringing my son home.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think any big responsibility of care,
Mm.
you know, when I first became a priest and
Mm. Mhm.
I was working at a big church and I was ordained and like 2 days later the rector went away for a month and I was
Mm.
like, "Uh-oh." Like, I'm okay. It's on me now, and I mean, anytime you have that, like, you're it. It's sort
Mhm.
of like, wow, what does that mean if like we're it? We're what creation has.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
oof.
Oof.
And
Yeah.
we don't have a great track record right now,
Yeah.
you know?
I
Yeah.
mean, that 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 hits differently. I mean, it really does. It's like, wow, if we think about it of like, we're the safeguard
Yeah.
that God we're the guardrail that God put in place
Oh,
for creation.
yeah.
Like, yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that we seem to have misunderstood that so
Mhm.
terribly. It's kind of it's tragic and it's a little bit heartbreaking and also, once I kind of move through that, then it's like, well, I guess we got work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which kinda leads us to our last question of what do you hear as a call to action for the church here?
Mm. Well, I mean, if we had that conversation in church all the time about if God has given us this enormous gift and the attendant responsibility that comes with it, then what are we doing with that?
Mm.
I know there's a lot of conversation about whether stewardship of creation is the right word. I I mean, and those are good conversations to have. And let's think about the actions that come out of it too. I mean, and it doesn't all have to be, becoming carbon neutral and putting on solar panels. I mean, I love all that stuff and I'm really into it. But a couple years ago now, I guess it'll be 2 years this summer. We had a group of us from my church go out and have a stargazing night.
Mm.
And I thought of that as I was reading because, just can you go out and look at stars by yourself? Sure, of course. Go with your family? Great. It was so different and special to do it with other people from church.
Mm.
And we started off, I think it was like August or September. There was going to be a meteor shower we were hoping for. And we found a place that didn't have a lot of light pollution, which gives you, that's something else. Then you can start talking about some of those issues, right? It's like, oh, did you know that it's really hard to find dark places or quiet places, sort of. And then we got out there and we read a little scripture. I don't think we read this psalm, but we read scripture wherever, there were discussions of the heavens and the stars and things like that. And then one of our members is a college student, and he said, "Oh, I've been helping to teach an astronomy class. Like I could actually like do a little demonstration." And we were just all enraptured by it, And so it was bringing out his gifts and just making us appreciate being outside together. And so I think there are things that we can do that build up that kind of that awe and that wonder, so that maybe the sense of responsibility isn't so heavy, or it's not about sort of guilt or the grief, or I mean those things that have a place, but they need to be balanced out by like just love on it, just we're using that parental
Yeah.
image a little bit, maybe just like, when is it time to just enjoy it, just to just love it and be with it, spend time with creation wherever you are, and then use that as a discernment too. So like, then what is God asking us to do here in this particular place? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good, because that's where the psalm starts. That responsibility
Mhm.
coming from an obvious love for God's creation,
Yeah.
an obvious like
Yeah.
enjoyment and wonder, and like just like, yes, this is amazing. And that then the responsibility kicks in.
Right.
It starts
Right.
it
Right.
starts with
Let's
the
start. Yeah.
love, the appreciation,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I did also want to add one little
Sure.
thing that I was thinking about. Uh, this is for the reading for Trinity Sunday.
I was just gonna go. Please, please.
And I was like, oh boy. The other readings, they try really hard to find anything that seems Trinitarian in
Yeah.
the readings for Trinity Sunday. And I thought, do I see anything about the Trinity here? Or what is the point of including this? And I don't have an answer, except to think that Trinitarian theology is essentially relational. That's what I came back to. So that to me, then, if we're trying to read this specifically in the context of Trinity Sunday, to think about, is this saying something about the relationality of all creation, the neighborliness we have with our non-human kin? How do we,
Mhm.
if we are again made in the image of God, and as Trinitarian Christians we believe, God is relationship, then that's as far as I could go with it.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, I'm so happy you went there, because that was gonna be my trick bonus question for you, and you preempted it.
I got there first.
You preempted it beautifully. But I think that's it, right? It's what if we thought of the Trinity as an ecosystem? What if
Mhm.
we thought of the Trinity as
Yeah.
a watershed or a bioregion? Like, what if we thought of the Trinity as sort of like this network of creation,
Yeah.
and the relationships in those networks? And again, the task for us as humans is, where is our role in the ecosystem?
Yeah.
Where is
Oh,
our role in the relationship?
yes. Yes. I love that. It's it's is it Leopold who talks about land community? It's that it's like it's all, we are learning how interconnected it all is, all more and more every day, and that seems to me boy, that's the earth itself kind of having that image of God in its DNA and how it's shaped and ordered and structured, and that it's those interconnections, those interrelationships are what keep everything alive. And so, yeah, and then where do we fit in that? I love it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We've given people something to work with for Trinity Sunday.
Besides
Did
the tree rock or
We
whatever. Yeah.
we did it. We did it. I mean, it's like again, I think there is something in like the beautiful perichoretic images that we have of thinking of creation as part of that perichoretic dance.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there you go. There's something people can work with.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
This has been such a fun conversation.
Oh,
I am so glad that I got to talk with you about this. Thank you for being on, and I look forward to having you back soon.
okay. Thanks so much, Derek.
Thank you for joining us for the Green Lectionary Podcast. This episode was produced by Sprocket Wagner, and the song within these pages was written and produced by Christian McIver. You can learn more and give to Creation Justice Ministries at creationjustice.org.
Our story comes alive within these pages, for every time and place throughout the ages. God speaks and is heard, and the enduring word calls us to care for our world as we share the love that can set creation free. Restoring the earth to wholeness, peace, and harmony. Let the songs of the water, land, and sky resound, 'cause together we're all bound. Within these pages, there's always new life to be found.